Hello everyone, welcome back to Krita Studios. Today's video is about this. It's the Duke of Air Cool Wheel. It is the Noctua NHD15 Chromax full stop black. Simple thing is that for a long time the NHD15 has been a benchmark for not only air coolers but a lot of AIOs as well. So why are we reviewing it in 2022? Because there are a lot of pretenders to the Duke's crown now, and we have to see if it still stacks up. So we are going to start with the looks. Simply put, it looks fantastic. I mean, at least the Chromax black version does. But the thing is that despite all of that, not all's good in paradise. The problems begin with the top of the cooler. So the heatsink has the cooling pipes protruding out, and having that heatsink cover would have been nice. So we do not have heatsink covers in India, but even that is all right. It does not look too bad. It looks sort of industrial and more like a cooler. That is perfectly all right. The bigger problem is that the fans, they were all black, and on top of them there are some random numbers in white. Now you may say that you can flip the fans, but then the cables would come out of the top of the fans and it would ruin the cable management. So it's not a big deal, but it is certainly a miss. There are 6 heat pipes, there are 2 cooling towers, there's an aluminium fin stack, and there are 2 fans Noctua NF-A15. That is peculiar. Not 12, not 14, it's 15. So the fan size is 140 x 150 x 25. Now the more important stuff, the height of the cooler. It's 165 mm with both the fans installed. So it'll fit in most of the cases. No, it won't, because the RAM clearance is only 32 mm. You'll have to go with low profile RAMs if you want this cooler installed, and if your RAM modules are taller than 32 mm, you're going to have to move the front fan slightly upwards, and that is going to raise the overall height of the cooler, and so it won't fit in most of the cases. Now we are going to talk about the box. The box is really pretty, it looks really good, but the inside is even prettier. Not just because it's minimalistic, but because of the accessories included and how well they're labeled out. And with the very extensively detailed guide, first of all, there's a Y cable so that you connect 2 of the fans to one header. Then there's a similar Y cable, but it is labeled as a low noise adapter. So it limits the RPM of the fans to 1300 RPM, which with the regular cable is 1500 RPM, at least in the specifications. So apart from that, you get the Noctua Special Securiform mounting kit finished in black, which is a good touch. You get a little bit of Noctua NTH1 thermal compound. Now we have to talk about the installation, and it's a breeze. It is very simple to install, but it is the guide. It is the guide that makes it really easy, and the very well labeled components as well. So we have an AMD Ryzen 7 3700X. It's an AM4 processor. First of all, you need the stock backplate of AM4. On top of those, you add the spacers that are marked for AM4. Then you take out the base plates for AM4, and this one has 2 sets of holes, one for AM3, one for AM4. Again, very well labeled out. Then you use the screws labeled AM4 and use them to secure the base plate to the spacers and the back plate. Now all you need to do is to add some thermal paste to your IHS, place the heatsink on top of the spacers, not the spacers, the base plate. After that, what you have to do is to tighten the screws alternatively. So 2 rounds on this one, 2 rounds on that one, so that you get an even mounting pressure, and that is all there is to it. After that, you get the fan clips with the fans. So you just attach the fans, attach the adapter of your choice, the Y cable of your choice. You can go with the low noise one, you can go with the regular one, and attach it to your CPU fan header, and that is it, you're done. cooler looks good, box is good, the contents of the box are good, but if it cannot perform well, if it doesn't do well in the benchmarks, the Duke may just lose his crown. So let us get into the benchmarks. Before that, I'll just take you through the process of how we tested the cooler, and for that I'll have to cheat using my beautiful laptop here. So first of all, we have a Ryzen 7 3700X overclocked to 4.2 GHz with a V-core of 1.4 volts, and in this state it consumes around 123 watts of power. For the testing, we have two sets. The first one is noise normalized to 40 dBA with a noise floor of 36 dBA. Why it's a bad day. Why noise normalized? Because any fan, if it spins fast enough, it can brute force its way on the top of the benchmark list and post some really low temperatures, but it will sound like a turbine, which we do not want. That is why the noise normalization 40 dBA with a noise floor of 36 dBA. So first, with the noise normalized set, we test the idle temperature and the load temperature. Then with 100% fan speed, again 100% fan speed is the second set, we test the idle temperature and the load temperature. For testing noise, we have a fixed location on our table for both the mic and the decibel meter. It is around 13 inches away from the side of the case, and all the panels of our case are removed. It was Fractal Design Meshify S2, which we mentioned in our methodology video. So the front panel, the left side panel, the top panel and the right side panel, everything is removed so that it simulates an open bench. The fans, of course, the case fans are disabled. Another thing to mention here is that the ambient temperature in all of the tests is 24 degrees Celsius, and we maintain that to the point of 0.3 degrees plus or minus according to our temperature probe that we have. Now, for measuring the idle temperature, we leave the desktop, we leave our computer at the desktop, and with the cursor stationary, all background apps closed, internet off, and then we log the current temperature, the delta T die from hardware info. Now, hardware info gives out the delta T die. We obtain, hardware info gives out the T die temperature, and we subtract the ambient temperature from it to get the delta T die. So after leaving it idle for 2 minutes, we take the average temperature of the current column, and that gives us our delta T die. For load, we have Cinebench R23 multi-core test, and it runs for 10 minutes, and again we obtain the delta T die via the means of hardware info, and we get the temperature, we average it out and we reduce the ambient temperature, and that is how we get our delta T die. So these are our tests, and the similar thing, a similar process is followed for both the noise normalized tests and the 100% fan speed tests. But these two in their own are enough to test the performance of a cooler, but just to be doubly sure and to simulate a more real world scenario, because Cinebench is sort of an unrealistic load, and noise normalization and open test bench is also sort of unrealistic. So we have added a gaming test, and I'm going to give you the specifics of it. So first of all, we reset the BIOS and all the case panels are attached. All the fans therefore are at their default case fans. All the fans are at their default fan curve, the case fans, the cooler fans, all of them. Next up, the CPU is also reset. There's no overclock applied. Everything is out of the box, bone stock. Only XMP is enabled, so because without that Ryzen is a bit handicapped. Now for the game, we play Forza Horizon 5 at 1080p with high preset. Unlocked FPS, VSync and FreeSync are off. The car that we use is a Lamborghini Centenario S1900, I guess it is, and we race against highly skilled drivatars, and the circuit of choice is the Bola 8 circuit. So this remains steady, and it will remain steady for all our tests, and this would be our gaming test. Now once the race starts, when we click on start event, that is when we start logging the temperatures in hardware info, and as soon as we reach the finish line, the logging stops. So that is how from there we get our delta T die during gaming. Again, T die from hardware info and ambient is subtracted. So this is our gaming setup. Now we are going to start with the benchmarks, and the first graphs that we have are for the noise normalized testing. Again, just a reminder that the ambient remains at 24 degrees Celsius. So the idle temperature at noise normalized fan speed, which came out to around 80% in the PWM and sat at around 1176 RPM. So in this state, the idle temperature, the idle delta temperature of our CPU was around 9.6 degrees Celsius. Now, noise normalized load temperature. Here the delta T die of our CPU was around 52.4 degrees Celsius. Now we move on to the results of 100% fan speed. First, idle temperatures. Delta T sat at around 9.4 for our CPU. Load at 100% fan speed, and the fan speed here was around 1400 RPM. The delta T for our CPU was 51.2 degrees Celsius. Now let me tell you about the gaming results. Again, everything was at default here. Now the CPU RPM, the average CPU RPM during this session of gaming was around 966 RPM, so it is going to be fairly quiet. The delta temperature of our CPU was around 31.7 degrees Celsius. Now I am going to tell you about the noise results. Just a reminder, noise floor is 36 dBA. At 50% fans, the Noctua sat at 37 dBA. That is whisper quiet. That is really good. Even at 100% fan speed, it did not exceed 43 dBA, which I think is amazing. And another really good thing about this cooler is that a lot of fans make a very unpleasant noise, if that's a thing. These make noise, but it is very tolerable, it is very smooth, or I don't know, I don't want to call it soothing because it's still noise, but it annoys you much less than some other fans. Now the results are out. The cooler looks good and everything is good, and even in the benchmarks, according to the benchmarks, we can say that the Duke has still got it. But now the price, 7.5K approximately for the non-Chromax version and around 8.5 for the Chromax version. So I'd say that for the price, it is well worth it. First of all, it's Noctua, the service and everything, and it is a legendary brand. It's really quiet, it performs really well, and it has been around a while, so I'd say that it is due for an update. But even in 2022, it holds its own. Now let us talk about the competition. Deepcool Assassin 3, which we have not tested. Noctua NH-U12A, again, which we have not tested. Now these are all around the same ballpark in terms of price. The Assassin 3 undercuts the NH-D15 a little bit, and the U12A, at least in India, is more expensive. So we are going to try to test those coolers out as soon as possible. We are trying to source them, and let's see how that pans out. Now let us talk about some more competition. There's the Be Quiet Dark Rock Pro 4 and there's the Scythe Fuma 2. Now the Scythe Fuma is entirely missing from India, and the Dark Rock Pro 4 is also scarcely available. Again, the pricing, at least for the Dark Rock Pro 4, is in the same ballpark. So we can say that the cooler holds its own. But the point of this review, and there's more competition for this, and the cooler that we are going to talk about in the next review is perhaps the biggest threat that the NH-D15 has faced till date. So stay tuned for that. For now, we can say that for the price, the NH-D15 Chromax Black is a pretty good deal. And that is it for this review. If you like the content, like, share, subscribe, and do stay tuned for the next review. Even if you want to go away after that, you can do that. But for more context on this, do check that one out. And bye.